Today we're going to talk all about our experience staying in RV parks. This is a video that we have talked about putting together for a while since we stayed in our very first RV park, but we felt it was only fair that we try out a few before giving our review of what it's like staying in an RV park. So, to give you a little bit of background, we prefer to camp for cheap. We like to boondock, dry camp. RV parks, not really our thing starting out full-time RV living, but there is a whole world of RV park people out there, especially on social media and on YouTube, people who are experts at staying in RV parks and do it all the time. So that just gives you a little more information about where we're at in terms of our RV park experience. We have recently visited 3 RV parks, one in Stanley, Idaho, one in Boise, Idaho, and one recently in Port Angeles, Washington. All different price ranges, all different companies. We felt like it gave us a more broad idea of different types of RV parks. This is not a review of the parks that we have stayed at necessarily. This is just, in general, combining our experiences, a general review. We're going to talk about our first impressions first. First impression, it's convenient. No time wasted looking for a site, which is something that we're very used to staying in other types of campgrounds. The sites are typically level, or at least pretty level, and you have full hookups, which is fantastic. But there were also some negative first impressions.
To me, it felt like an outdoor hotel. Like you're just very, very close to your neighbors. Everything is very, I don't know, by the book. Like there's lots of rules, there's lots of regulations, lots of rules, and very, very close to the people that are next to you.
Yeah, not a lot of space.
We're literally like, you walk out our door and we're 3 feet away from somebody else's sewage hose with like the little clear elbows. You're like, oh, there we go.
Okay, so there were pros and cons with our first impressions. Now we're going to talk about some of our favorite things so far that we've experienced while staying in RV parks.
Not having to worry about utilities, like a set it and forget it. You hook up your sewer, you hook up your water, you hook up your electric, and you don't have to worry about anything. Like you can just run everything like you would in a normal house and you're good to go. There's a lot of peace of mind being in full hookups.
In a previous video, Cole talked about how one of his biggest pet peeves about living in the RV is we have to dump our tanks pretty often. And we're always worried about, well, he's always worried about water usage. So you don't really have to worry about that in an RV park. One of my favorite things was having access to nice showers and laundry facilities. We don't shower in the camper very often just because it's not like a super pleasant experience. It's fine, our water pressure is good and everything, but we have a hot water heater that you actually have to manually light, so we typically, well, we always just don't do that, and we just take cold or room temperature showers. So having access to hot, large showers is wonderful, and laundry. I think one of the RV parks that we recently stayed at, I did like 4 loads of laundry in a day, so that was great. All right, now let's talk about our least favorite things from our experience staying in RV parks.
Definitely how close you are to everybody around you, and this might have been just the parks that we were specifically staying at, but I felt like we were incredibly close to the rigs that were next to us. I mean, within 5 feet on either side, you have somebody else that's set up. So that is not my cup of tea. I would like some space. I would like to be able to kind of do our own thing, and that was not the case at these parks. One
of the biggest downsides for me was not having space for the dogs, and this kind of goes into just not having space in general, but you have to have them on a leash the whole time, which I don't have a problem with having the dogs on a leash, but a lot of times, like, the dog area is really small, and one of our dogs is wild, and having space for her to run and play is super important. So it's just kind of a bummer when, you know, they're confined to a leash all the time and there aren't a ton of places to walk them or no places to let them off leash. And that's just what we've experienced. I'm sure, I know there are other RV parks that have like a dog run or a dog park area. We just haven't encountered that. and I didn't like that.
Ones we've stayed in just haven't been very scenic. Like, you pull into basically a parking lot where everybody's just parked next to each other, and there might be a nice view down the road, but you're just kind of off to the side, or you're right next to a highway, because they're usually convenient for driving in like big rigs. So it's a lot of pull-through sites, but it usually just looks like a parking lot.
Probably our number one least favorite thing about RV parks is they're just expensive. Yeah, especially because we like to camp for cheap or free when we can. It's hard to justify spending $50, $60, $70, $80, $90, or $100 to park for the night when you can go do it for free somewhere else. And in addition to being typically a little more expensive, you have to make reservations pretty far in advance if you're trying to book one of the popular RV parks, especially if it's close to a popular attraction. Like, think of a nice RV park by Yellowstone, or Yosemite, or something like that. Those book up
months and
months in advance. So yeah. The big question, will we stay at more RV parks? And the answer is absolutely. Even though there are things we don't like about them.
Like, it's not where we would choose to stay. It's not the type of place that we like to stay, but if we need to have power or AC, if we're leaving the dogs for an extended period of time, if we need to do laundry, it's like, hey, let's pay $50 or $60 a night, stay in an RV park, and get all of those things done in a day. It's like, if you need a maintenance day, go stay in an RV park.
So I think we'll be staying in them when needed, as Cole said. You know, when we need the perks that RV parks typically provide, and we don't necessarily care about the cons that come along with them. They serve a purpose.
Yeah, and I can definitely see it serving more of a purpose for people like families with small kids. There's always like tons of activities. Like, we pulled into this one last week and they're like, oh, we have, I don't know, s'mores going on tonight, or live music, or there's an ice cream social, or there's games outside for kids to play. Like, that would be nice if you have young kids. We obviously do not have any kids. We just have our dogs, so that doesn't really apply to us as much, a lot of the perks that come with it.
Right. We don't want to come across as though we're saying, oh, we hate staying in RV parks. I don't feel that way. Do I want to stay at them all the time? No, but the biggest reason that we don't want to stay at them all the time is because it is expensive, and that just doesn't really fit the way that we are trying to travel right now. A lot of RV parks do offer weekly and monthly rates, so if you want to stay in an area for a full week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, then that might make more sense for you. For us, it just doesn't often make that much sense unless we need hookups for one reason or another.
And if like you don't have a solar setup, it might be way more necessary for you to stay in RV parks more often. But the fact that if we're not using a ton of energy, we can be off grid for a week or two or whatever we would like, as long as we're replenishing our batteries with our solar.
Yeah, it's been interesting, and I personally would really like to stay at one of the nicer RV parks that has like a nice pool and some other perks. Going forward, we'll definitely explore RV parks more and more. It's not like we have a bad taste in our mouth from staying in RV parks. It's just kind of, it is what it is. And yeah, if that's your thing, awesome. If it's not your thing, then maybe just stay in them when you need the perks of RV parks.
If you have some RV parks that you absolutely love, or we should maybe try out, maybe drop them in the comments as we're kind of traveling around.
Yeah, just as long as they're not the kind that you have to book like a year or 2 years in advance. Because
or like a week or two out at the most, like making reservations.
Getting a last minute site is more our vibe. Thank you so much for watching this video, you guys. We really appreciate it. We have new videos twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, so please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Stuff like this where we talk about RV life and also other vlog style adventure things that we do as we travel around the country. So give this video a like, drop a comment below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.